The most interesting one, Robert. Which one was that? Dare say, please.
Ghislaine Maxwell, where we also don't. Here's what's amazing: they are videotaping all the trial proceedings, but they're only broadcasting it if you're inside the courtroom. So I think they should be broadcasting it to the world for the world to know and see. I'm also not super comfortable at keeping anonymous the names of any adult victim, even if they were victimized when they were a minor. I just, we have public trials for a reason. I've never been comfortable with adults being their identities being kept secret. We don't have secret trials in America, and we shouldn't start introducing them under any pretext.
And I'll be fair to you is that you don't even think the same argument for protected witnesses, even if they're adults, would apply to protecting jury members. And I know you don't support that either. So that is a question of opinion. It's a question of judgment. But Robert, before we get into this, what drives me crazy, I read a lot of the comments, probably all of them. I don't want to admit it because it's embarrassing. People accuse you, Robert, of saying you don't want to drop the Mossad word as relates to Ghislaine Maxwell's family. But to which I say, you guys are new to the channel. Welcome to the channel. We covered this. I remember where, Robert. I was in my mother-in-law's sunroom in the Eastern Townships, and you were dropping truth bombs that I had never heard of as relates to... I'm a schnook. I knew nothing. I knew nothing of Ghislaine Maxwell's father, her history. So I just want to do it right now. There's nobody works for Mossad and is protecting anybody. Robert, if you could just illustrate Ghislaine Maxwell's father's history with intelligence agencies to explain away why she might be getting something of preferential protective treatment from the states, if you can.
Well, or the way I would put it is, as we predicted last week, this criminal trial, the prosecution is going way out of its way to avoid any mention of any third party that could be implicated by this case. The defense has occasionally brought up names. The only name the prosecution will talk about is Donald Trump. And again, it's James Comey's daughter bringing the prosecution. What you have not heard about in the trial is Mossad, is MI6, is CIA, is Robert Mueller, is
Bill
FBI, the Clinton Foundation. Now, Bill Clinton has come up by the defense, but not by the prosecution. Kevin Spacey came up by the defense, but not by the prosecution. A lot of the other people on those planes came up by the defense, but not by the prosecution. Fidel Castro, and this was news to me. There's photos of Epstein with Fidel. What was Jeffrey doing down there in Cuba with Fidel? So it implicates a lot of people in a range of play. Bill Gates, somehow his name is dodged any accountability in the trial. So as predicted, they've structured this trial to limit accountability to only Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and pretend these other big people really didn't have anything to do with it.
All right, and that's actually, I am not even referring to them as conspiracy theories anymore. I'm just saying theories. Some of the theories as to the critiques as to why James Comey's daughter is the prosecution, as to Allison Nathan as the judge, is not that they're going to spare the rod on Ghislaine. It's that they're going to spare the rod on everyone else, incidental or directly correlated to Ghislaine. And that was one of my questions. I said, okay, they're going after Ghislaine. I've seen enough now of the summary of the trial to know that if they've been following Ghislaine and Epstein for however long, and it looks like a decade plus, they know each and every person who procured the services for which Ghislaine and Epstein are being charged. Why are none of them being charged? Robert, do you have do you have
things like
that other than politics?
How did the computer towers disappear on the eve of the search warrant raid? That came out that there was all this computer equipment, but the towers were gone. And somehow it's not going to be discussed at the trial. So what has developed at the trial, the best coverage of this, who's going out to watch it live on the video screens inside the courtroom, is Good Logic, LAWGIC. So he's been following it, breaking it down. He gets up and does his prayers, then he takes the train, then he hustles back, and then he tries to.
Just so no one accuse you of anything discriminatory, Joe Neerman is religious. It's overt, and he's admitted to it. So there's. I don't
Basically, want he's exhausted. Basically, it's like 6 a.m. to midnight every day after day after day after day. Because you got to hop the train in New York. You got to get through it. You got to get through all the security that's there. Then you get up into the little room. So he's been breaking it down day by day by day. Robert Gruller does breakdowns at the end of the day. And from what I've seen, she's fried. Maxwell's fried.
Oh, well, So Joe Neerman is good logic, and I don't want to. He's doing the Lord's work, no pun intended, in terms of this, day in and day out, updates during pauses, and great coverage. Inner City
And you
Press,
have like legal pad full of notes.
well, Inner City Press, I don't know how they're doing it on Twitter. They're updating, and I don't know if they have their phone in there, but it's like
They
minute
do.
by minute.
They're not inside the courtroom. They've
Okay.
created a bunch of additional rooms where you get to watch it on TV.
Okay, and I'm bringing this up. Joe's doing a good job. God bless him, because he does deserve recognition for what he's doing.
Yep.
In day in and day out, yeah. No, Ghislaine Maxwell is going to. Here's what I don't even understand. The defense of Ghislaine Maxwell is not that Ghislaine is innocent; it's that everyone else is guilty. His name is Juan Alessaro.
Juan, don't call me John.
Don't call me John Juan. That's a shirt right there. The Juan, don't call me John Juan, who even when he was cross said, I didn't think anything was offensive about being called Juan or John. Their main way of undermining Juan's incriminating testimony against Ghislaine is by saying you participated in it, you're just as guilty. That's not a defense for Ghislaine. That's just more of like everyone else should be involved and throw everyone else under the bus. That's not going to get Ghislaine acquitted.
It's very much like the Jussie Smollett defense. It's attack everybody else, and it's like playing to the ego of the defendant. Oh yeah, they're bad. They're bad. They're worse. They went along. They compromised. So, well, I shouldn't be held responsible for this. Every witness is bad. And like Ghislaine appears to be acting, according to some people who have seen her in the courtroom, very confident and happy, which would be consistent with her delusional mindset that I think she's had from day one. I mean, they came up with these crazy rules within there. They were like mini Nazis. They had all these crazy internal rules for staff. You can't eat in front of us. You can't drink in front of us. You must stand this way. You must look this way. You can't do this.
Pause it there just so everyone knows what's going on. Robert, you now are referring to a manual, the Black Book, instruction for staff. Now, again, when I saw the words on the paper of this instruction for staff, and it's a lengthy document, I was like, okay, this is either fake or it's psychotic. It's one or the other, because if it's real,
psychotic. It's British royal family. Ghislaine Maxwell clearly thought, because of her daddy, that she was effectively British, and her friendships with some of the British royal family, who also somehow the prosecution can't get the names Prince Andrew out of their mouth during the case so far. Very interesting. Classic. Maureen Comey is doing what her daddy did well: cover up for the real criminals, while looking like they're prosecuting the bad ones. It's a show trial. But it's a show trial with someone who's clearly guilty, who's happy to play in the show because she lives in such a narcissistic, entitled world that she can't understand the sense of responsibility or accountability. And anyone who says anything is bad. And so now a lot of these witnesses, apparently the one guy had a couple of thefts, a couple of this, a couple of that. So apparently had some problematic past issues. But
this
didn't
Juan.
Change his testimony.
No, that's the thing. So Juan tried to steal $6,000 on one occasion, $5,000 on another, apparently a firearm on another occasion. Juan, and was driving victims around, was cleaning up the massage.
Not only that, as the idiots elicited on cross, he drove Ghislaine around scouting talent, which was, finding underage girls with, at ice cream cones at the park. I mean, and so they were able to take apart, like, the victims are going to have, because of the length of time, because of the nature of the trauma, because the usual biographical background of someone that is targeted. They target people that already have issues. And because of that, those other issues can create problems in their memory recall and other things that they experience. And they've been able to document some of that, but not that changes the core story. The prosecution did do a good job of putting on a grooming expert on the stand. And I thought Good Logic was right about the timing. Putting the victim first and then the expert, they're able to understand everything the victim said, and now we'll be able to be looking for it for the next group. And the problem is they're all going to fit, because it's clear Epstein is guilty, and it appears that instead of I thought they would take a limited defense of just challenging whether she was there or not, and they were going to say that she's only being added to the equation because she happened to date him years ago, and because there was a lot of money to be made and naming more people. And they've made that defense, but it hasn't been the focal point. Instead, they go other places because I think her ego wants the witness attacked, not understanding that the nature of that attack actually undermines the defense.
Everyone needs to understand that, because I'm sitting there saying, okay, good. So you are now, what's the word? Robert, when you put the witness in contradiction to their previous statements.
Prior inconsistency.
Okay, that might be it. There's a word I'm looking for, but they're going to say, okay, Juan, you are such an unreliable witness because you were a co-conspirator. He wasn't a co-conspirator in a formal sense, but you participated in this. You tried to steal. You tried to steal money, a gun. You were trafficking them around. You knew everything all along. At one point, from what has been reported, when they asked Juan in cross-examination, did you see any signs of violence or whatever? And he said, no, I wish I had. I would have intervened. And apparently the courtroom laughed, because what you have is a courtroom saying, this witness is so in bed with the crime itself. Okay, fine. He's not on trial, but the defense, by undermining him, by making him look like he's equally guilty, all that it does is further incriminate Ghislaine. So, like, okay, good. Yes. So this guy's an unreliable witness because he's a criminal who was working with the criminal for 12 years. How does that exonerate Ghislaine?
Exactly. It didn't help at all. So I thought, and then a good amount of the cross-examination of the victim, some of it was effective at pointing out her memory recall. You have reasons to doubt, but the core of the story, you don't have reasons to doubt. And so I think they really didn't make much headway there. If they would have kept a narrow focus, they would have had a remote but still viable chance. I think at this point it's no chance.
Well, I say it's no chance.
But I think she'll be shocked. She'll be shocked by her mind, by the way her defense is acting, by the way she's behaved to date, by the way she's behaving in court. And basically, it was very revelatory. She thought she was the equivalent of a royal family. You will sit around and you will do this. You will say this. You will behave this. You will not look at this. You will see nothing, hear nothing, and say nothing. I mean, it's stuff that you got a real view of who she was. And then, all the toys and all the other stuff. Yeah, well, I mean, that was just.
First of all, I don't want to make light of any of this. This is revolting to the pit of my stomach, so far down it goes to my butt. I mean, this is revolting through and through. And my only issue is, it's nice. They're going to convict Ghislaine, thoroughly convinced. They're going to convict her so as to absolve everyone else who was involved in this, including the named co-conspirators from back in 2000. What was it? 2007. But two things. First of all, in that book that Juan is alleged to have stolen, the black book with the instructions to the staff, it said that if the toothpaste was half empty, throw it out and refill it with a new one. And like I'm sitting here, I'm jogging, watching Robert Ruler talk about this, and I'm thinking, in my house, when the toothpaste is empty, we cut the back off, we pop it open, and we rub the toothbrush inside to get any remaining toothpaste out. I've listened to this. It's like, I would say royalty, but it's more like fascist dictators like Kim Jong-un.
That's what I mean. It's fascist royalty kind of behavior, because that's how it very self-entitled, power-driven, ego-driven. And then people were saying, nobody was really going to blame Juan for trying to steal anything, because that was pretty much the job from hell. I mean, you had to set up and clean up after Epstein.
Clean up.
You had to bring the toys back. I mean,
certain words we
that
can't
basically
repeat.
Was prison.
It's like I won't even clean up words you cannot mention on the YouTubes, and but I say it's the worst job on earth, but it's also criminals. Like, hey, Juan is sitting there saying, what are they going to do? Yeah, I stole $10,000. Report me to the cops. Good luck with that, sir. Yeah, there was one orange thing I wanted to bring up here. I love you both and all the beautiful people of vivabarneslaw.locals.com. You all literally saved my family's lives. Become a member. Jennifer Lamp, thank you very much. And thank you for being a member as well. But no, my issue is that never forget that Maxwell herself is the smokescreen. I was just going to say this. If the Epstein network of celebrities, politicians, scientists, etc., don't go down or get exposed, this will all have been for nothing. It'll
be for something that they can take you out anytime they want and cabin and control the damage, so that all the people who really profited from it never face any consequences. Because, like, some people were asking, there are clear connections between Epstein and Mossad and Israeli high-ranking officials. There's clear connections between Epstein and Mueller and FBI. There are clear connections between Ghislaine Maxwell and her father, Robert Maxwell, with intelligence agencies all around the world. And like when people always want to exclusively focus on Mossad, I'm like, okay, maybe that assumption is on you a little bit, because Robert Maxwell was not limited. He was in bed with MI6. He was in bed with the KGB, and this goes all the way back to how he escaped the consequences of the Nazis in the Ukraine in the first place.
Well, this is something I do want to bring up, because when people say focus on Mossad, typically those are people with an agenda who want to focus on Israel and religion. But Mossad is just another country's intelligence. And the issue here is not one specific country. It's pretty much all intelligence of the most powerful nations on earth.
Yes.
Powerful military. So yeah, MI6, CIA, Mossad, KGB. I mean, it's nothing to, when you say it, Robert, it's nothing to do with being anti-Semitic or anything related to religion. It's just intelligence agencies of military powers. And these people were, and we all know it now. And we're watching a freaking trial, and I'm sitting there trying to say, okay, fine. What are the theorists going to say about what's going down? She'll get convicted. Prosecution is doing a good job convicting her.
And I think she'll be convinced in her head that she can win on appeal. And I don't think she'll ever rat anybody else out, because I don't think she thinks that way. And if they're ever worried about it, Eternal Truth number 2 will probably take place. Epstein didn't kill himself. We'll see what happens with Ghislaine Maxwell if they ever do think she's going to start spilling the beans on who else was there. Though Epstein had a lot more knowledge than she ever did.
But Robert, here's my, I mean, okay. And I don't, this is not a question of every fear hides a wish, and I don't want to plant the seeds. I'm just saying to myself, as I'm looking at this, if they wanted to do the Epstein, there's people that they could Epstein, who might be mouthing off too much now already. The only question, I guess, becomes, at what point does it become too much? But I thought it became too much with Epstein himself, where you had Styx, Hexenhammer, all the other guys saying, they're going to kill him. They're going to kill him. They're going to kill him. Everyone says, you're crazy. Then he dies.
And Epstein was more cognizant of his situation, I think, than Maxwell is. And to the degree she has any inclinations the other ways, she knows what happened to her dad. Her dad went out on a boat, didn't come back. He fell off.
What was the name of the boat, Robert? I know, but what does the crowd not know?
Remind me.
I think it was called the Ghislaine, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Because this is how much I pay attention, Robert. And I'm saying, for the criticism, I was like, no, dude, we talked about this so long ago that it shocked me. It's like, first of all, call me stupid. I didn't even know of Ghislaine Maxwell's origins, because I thought the name was original name. Wasn't the original name. I was naive to the point of stupidity. So I can admit that.
And if people want to, know how groomers operate, the groomer's testimony, the groomer expert testimony was very good for that. I think that has utility beyond this case.
Yeah.
To know what to spot the signs, spot the flags, spot the problems, etc. Now, I mean, to some degree, it was all because some of these parents, at least the first victim's parents, were totally in on it. Well, because you go to some old guy's house, and is a bunch of naked women hanging around the pool, and you're going to have your 14-year-old daughter there? I don't think so. But though Epstein's lucky he didn't go certain places, because certain places they would have taken the law in their own hands, and he would have found himself Louisiana fishing. But he's lucky in that respect.
I'm going to say one thing. You have gotten pixelated at the very moment we started discussing this, and now I know people are going to say YouTube is throttling this. Oh, you're totally frozen now. But so that was one of my questions, Robert. I'm not a helicopter parent by any means, but I'm a decent human being with a half a brain. How the flipping hell do the parents let this happen to their kids? For those that had parents involved, because from the evidence, it seems like parents were knowingly bringing their kids to these locations.
Yeah. Well, at least the first parent of the first person, basically she pimped out her daughter for her own financial well-being and prominence. That's what happened. And they likely targeted those kind of people in those situations. That's who when they're not targeting foster children and things like that. So, they always, they target runaways, foster children. Eliza Blue gave a good explanation of how they target people in a wide range of context, and on our sidebar interview. So and she does a lot of advocacy in that space and understand how it works. Understand, it doesn't start off with, give me a special massage. It builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and they target vulnerable people to begin with.
It was the I said we had to, I don't know if grooming is a bad word on the internet anymore, so the brooming, but whatever, the training, the conditioning of children, it is a process, and it's what these predators absolutely understand, and which is why I say, like, broadcasting this trial would have been good for the perception of justice, transparency of the system, but also for the knowledge. Read it's one of the body panel, by the way, Scott Roast was in the house earlier, I brought up a super chat, but read, I think it was Robert, who do we do last from the body panel?
Chase Hughes?
No, before Chase Hughes.
Greg Hartley?
Greg Hartley. No, it was Chase Hughes. Never mind. It was Chase Hughes. In his book, this, I think it's the 6-minute X-ray, but like, how to identify people who exploit weaknesses of others for their own personal gain. That's effectively what grooming is. Just change the object. And it can be Ghislaine Maxwell type exploitation, or it could just be monetary gain. It could be political gain. It could be social gain. When predators exploit their prey, they're looking for the same type of prey all the time. And I read the reviews of what the expert was testifying to, and it's like, this is not new because I've heard it before, but it would have been great for everyone to hear, especially parents.